page is 2A, which kind of still corresponds with this, change in estimated market values. So kind of one of the biggest questions is, so how do we determine those changes to estimated market values every year? You get your valuation notice, and you know sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, or it may stay the same. Basically, the Department of Revenue compares our estimated market value, so that's the value that we have placed on the property, compared to the sale price of properties that have sold, okay? And just arm's length or good sales, so not relatives or old contracts or foreclosures. A lot of times the question is, do foreclosures, you know, that property sold for foreclosure for $5,000, does that include? No, it's just basically open market, you know, willing buyer, willing seller. So they're gonna take our value that we have on it divided by the sale price. By statute, we are required to have that median ratio between 90 and 105%. Okay, so a property sells for $100,000. By statute law, we're supposed to be at least $90,000 and not above $105,000. Okay, so we're going to take basically within the jurisdiction, you're going to take all of your sales. So one sale does not make a market, right? Unfortunately, in our smaller towns or smaller county, we don't have the luxury of having 100 sales to kind of tell us, yep, this is exactly where the market is going. But we typically do get enough sales throughout the year to kind of give us an idea, you know, and usually we have an idea. We're meeting with other counties as well, so we kind of can see those trends. But if you look on there, just a very simple example here, we've got 7 sales. You see their ratios, which is our value divided by sale price. The median there is 86%. We have to be at least 90 in the end of it all, at the end of the year. So as a result, estimated market values must be increased by a minimum of 4%. Goal is 100%. Department of Revenue likes us to see, after our local effort or our changes, around 100%. But if we didn't increase, we left our median ratio at 86, and I said, well, we're not really not going to change values this year. I can guarantee you they will come in, and they will. All right, number 3 on the circle, opportunities to appeal. So we send these notice evaluations out to everybody, and they get them and they read them, and you know, quite often you look at it and say, well, I'm not quite for sure. So what if you do disagree with your value or classification? Okay, the first step that we really encourage in our office, and we encourage that anytime, it doesn't even have to be at appeal season, it can be anytime throughout the year. We really, you know, for the informal options, we really would like you to contact our office. Speak with your appraiser, speak with myself, speak with, you know, whoever is kind of responsible for that jurisdiction. Ask us the questions, state your concerns. You know, a lot of the times, this is where the taxpayers will walk away with their answers. They don't always like the answer, to be honest, but you know, at least they have a better understanding of why we did what we did, or why it's doing what it's doing. So we really encourage that opportunity to speak with them. The other informal option is to appeal at the open book meeting, if that's chosen by your jurisdiction. So Winthrop City does choose this open book informal option, and what it is basically it's the same thing as, you know, come in, ask us your questions. It's really informal. It's versus I'll kind of move on to the formal options. Option 1 for formal options is the boards of appeal and equalization for the jurisdictions that select that. Now each city and township is different. They can choose whichever they choose, whichever one that they prefer. But at the board of appeal and equalization, the property owner, if they have concerns or they disagree with that value classification, they're going to be going to that local board of appeal, which is typically in the cities, it would be your council members, and if you're in the townships, it would be your township supervisors. You're going to appeal to them, and they make the decision. So at this point, you know, the assessor or the appraiser has placed that value on your property. And if you disagree with that, or we're not, you know, as part of the informal, we don't come to an agreement, or you know, not quite matching there, they will appeal to that board of appeal, and they make the decision, not the assessor. We are there for just to provide information, right? So it's ultimately up to them. And those are usually held in April. If at that appeal they are still not satisfied with the outcome of their appeal, they can move on to step 2, which is the county board of appeal and equalization, which is held in June. So it's kind of a two-step process with that. At the county board, then it would be your 5 county board commissioners, and as well as Mary Peterson, the county auditor treasurer, making those decisions. Option 2 is under the formal options is Minnesota Tax Court, and that's either small claims or regular division. We do get a few of those throughout the year. Kind of depends on, you know, where we're going with value, but at that point, our county attorney Dave Schauer helps us with with that stuff as well, so.
But you didn't have to talk to me,
Yeah, but we very much do appreciate his knowledge with that purpose. So we go to the next page, 3A. So what effect does a change have? Somebody comes to the Board of Appeal and they feel their value or classification and there is a change. How does that affect everybody else? How does that affect taxes? You know, sometimes people come in and think, oh, I'm going to appeal, I lower my tax amount and I'm going to move on. What they don't quite understand is that now while we're not opposed to any changes, certainly if somebody comes in and they have a valid appeal or they have a valid concern and we go out and say our building we had 50 feet on our property records and it really is 40. Okay, we're gonna come out there and verify it. Yep, that was an error, we're gonna make that change. So we're not at these boards of appeal to say, no changes, what we have is correct. It's not like that, but certainly if there is a change, we do want it to be justified or fair. Okay, so this page, I know there's a lot of information, I hear a lot of numbers, but I'll try to condense it a little bit here. So for example, 1, when it says that total estimated market value of $305,000, that's the total value for all these 4 properties. Say it's really simple, we have a small town, we have 4 properties, okay? You can see the township levy, that third piece is $2,000. So that's the amount of money, and we'll get into the calculating of property taxes a little bit later, but that's the amount of money that this city or township says we need to operate, okay? So you can see there, property A has an estimated market of $40,000, their taxes are $264. I'm not gonna go through every one, but you can just take it notes, okay? Example 2 brings into play the concept of the owner of property D appealed the value of their property. They did not provide any evidence as to why their value should be reduced, but the board decided to reduce it by $25,000 anyway, and have a big yikes after that. No, I mean, if they did reduce it, we would certainly hope that it would be justified, but the example shows how the change affects the share of the tax burden for the 4 properties. So as you can see now, under example 2, the total estimated market value for these 4 properties is $280,000, okay? That was that 305 minus 25,000. The township levy is gonna stay the same, because the township or the city, they still need that money to operate, and that's really a common misconception that if we lower values, taxes are all gonna go down, everybody's taxes are gonna go down. Well, that really isn't quite how it works, and Marilee will get into that, but we still need that money to operate, so somebody has to pay it, right? So under example 2, you can see they lowered property B's value, and you can see their taxes went down, right? It went from 825 to 720. But look at what it did to the other property owners. You can see all 3 of theirs went up, because it's basically just shifting that pie or that burden for each property owner. So, that's one thing that we want people to understand. They come in and they appeal, and everybody thinks, if everybody in town just said, well, yeah, I'll lower everybody's property value, it just shifts it to everybody else. Okay. So lower, yes?
What is the NTC?
Net tax capacity. So basically, like we said, Minnesota's a very complicated tax. You think you just take value times something and it equals your tax, but basically your net tax capacity is you're gonna take your value times your class rate, which the legislature sets up, and then times your tax rate, and that's kind of your tax capacity. So yes, net tax capacity.